posted online in its full state, unedited, so everything you say will be on the record and put online. So I trust that you guys won't say anything that you don't want to be online, because then you wouldn't say it in the room either. So just disclosure, this is being recorded. Welcome to the 2025 candidate Q&A for MNFurs, a nonprofit here, 501c3 in the state of Minnesota. I am today's moderator, Rico. With us in the room, for those that are online that may not be able to see, we have Aubrey and Kirst. Online for candidates, we have Gita. Disclosure, Talon, due to work commitments, won't be able to record until after, which will be done on Teams. And honestly, I am not entirely sure where White Fang is. So White Fang is absent. And I do not have a recording date set, so that's where we are right now. So how this is going to work, I know a lot of you are familiar with the process, but we also have a lot of new people as well. The Q&A session will be roughly 2 hours at its most. There are 25 questions. We will do a 15-minute break about halfway through. It says here the 1 hour mark, but depending on how fast we get through these, we'll determine that. And we have this room until 5. Hopefully we won't go that far, but hopefully this will be done well before 4:30. With that being said, don't rush with your answers. There's no wrong answers. Whatever you feel is appropriate. I spoiled it. There's 25 questions at the session. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes. I will be running a timer on my phone. When you start getting down to like the 15-second mark, I will give you kind of a wrap it up. And hard at the 2-minute mark, I will cut you off. It's not me being rude, it's ensuring fairness for all our candidates. The community, sorry, I copied this from last year, I'm not gonna lie. I'm just gonna actually say that the questions being emailed are cut off. I previously communicated online that the questions I had until 12 noon. They're in the slide deck, and that's kind of how they are, and that's how they'll be presented to Talon and every candidate. So ignore that last minute questions thing. So with that being said, we did get a lot of community questions this year, and a lot of our question pool has been exchanged out for those community questions. So for those that studied previous year Q&A sessions, props on you for doing studying, but a lot of the questions are not being used. Like I said before, this event is being recorded on Teams and via a camera here in the room. Some turnaround time for editing, also getting Talon and whoever else candidates responses edited. They will be available on YouTube. And like I said before, Talon will be recorded, and probably at this point, White Fang. So the candidates this year in alphabetical order by alias name is White Fang, Aubrey, Gina, Kirst, and Talon. Previously, we had Roscoe as a candidate, but by their request, they have withdrawn from the elections. Candidate bios are available online via MNFurs.org. Pending current refactoring on the board level, we're trying to determine if late bios will be accepted or not. We'll figure that out at the end of the board session, which is tonight. Tonight at 6:30.
6:30 social hour, 7 o'clock start time.
Gotcha. So we'll be debating that. The election process really needs to start outlining its guidelines, processes, which will be done for next year. So just transparency on that. Voting this year, volunteer hours are hard due by December 17th at midnight, after which all those hours, 20 hours are required for voting rights. Those with 20 hours can start voting on December 19th. Voting will be done this year on volunteer.mnfurs.org. Voting codes are not needed this year, as that platform will determine your eligibility based off your hours submitted. Yeah, that's pretty much it. All voting is anonymous, and voting starts on the 19th. So, Bob, any questions? MNFurs.org will have this all reiterated on the voting process. Voting will close at midnight on January 9th of next year, and the results announcement will be within 48 hours. honestly, it will probably be a lot sooner than that since it's electronic. We're just going to validate to make sure that the voting pool is accurate to the voting eligibility. That's it. Any questions? Cool. How this works is I have a random order of who will be asked these questions, and I'll state that order. As a reminder, you got 2 minutes, which I will time for you guys. And I don't see White Fang, so today it'll just be Aubrey, Gita, and Kirst. At this point, if White Fang joins the call, we will just defer him to an offline session or something. I haven't actually had this happen before, so I'm going to figure that out. Cool. And with that, we will begin. I didn't start this. One second, I didn't start the camera. And I will mute Slack. Okay. Sorry. Now we will begin. It's recording that, it's recording that, and I don't need that audio, so, okay. For this first one, it will be Aubrey, Gita, Kirst. And this question is, what do you think is the most important responsibility of the board of directors in a volunteer nonprofit, volunteer ran nonprofit like MNFurs? Aubrey, you have 2 minutes, then Gita, then Kirst.
So what I feel like is the most important responsibility for the board of directors, besides running events and making sure everything is running without a hitch, is to make a safe and enjoyable time for the community to come hang out by gathering funds to go around to these different places and be able to possibly explore new options for more events from others.
Gita, what do you think is the most important responsibility of the board of directors in a volunteer-run nonprofit like MNFurs? Gita, if you're talking, you're currently muted on Teams.
Oh no, I had to. I unmuted myself with the on purpose.
The floor is yours, Gita. Do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I've got it. I just trying to formulate my answer.
The timer is starting.
I would say oversight of various departments, ensuring that we're all able to communicate efficiently and with respect to the individual.
Cool. I see you muted your mic, so I will assume that concludes your answer. Kirst, what do you think is the most important responsibility of the board of directors in a volunteer-run nonprofit like MNFurs?
The most important responsibility is to ensure the MNFurs can exist for years to come. It is not their responsibility. I mean, this is the most important responsibility. Is anything else is secondary to making sure MNFurs exist 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. It doesn't matter for any of these other little small things that there. it has to be that Minnesota Firs exists and exists for the long term. If we are just here for short little things like that and we don't think about the future of 5 years, 10 years down the road, we're being very short-sighted at that point. We have to keep, the board of directors is not there for the day-to-day. The board of directors has to be thinking 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years in the future. They can't just be thinking, what is the next day? That is the most important role for them.
Next question. Working on the board sometimes means working with individuals that you may not personally get along with. What are some ways that you would handle this? For this order, we will be going Gita, Kirst, Aubrey. And Gita, your time starts now.
I would handle it like in a way to where I'm not looking at the person, I'm looking at the role and how it impacts the group as a whole, to where my opinion of that person doesn't matter. What's going on in the project, let's just say it's, you know, something for furry migration. My opinion of the person doesn't matter. The being able to get the project done is more important.
Thank you. Kirst, working on the board sometimes means working with individuals that you may not personally get along with. What are some ways that you would handle this?
And this is always going to be something. I mean, we're all working with all people from all different walks of life, all different things. So we have to work and realize that everybody here is trying for the best for the organization, trying the best things. So you got to put yourself in their shoes. You got to look at it and their way of trying to see how they react to you, how you relate to them too. And so you just got to, you know, just go and say, you know, how do we make sure we're getting both of our views to make sure that we work together and make sure that we're all there? Because this is a nonprofit, I mean, we're not working for money. We're not working for things. We're working for making sure that you know, the end goal is the organization is a better thing. So we got to make sure that we're all getting something out of it, and that is to make a better organization. So one of the things that I mean, for me and everything else is try to see and making sure that, you know, I still feel good in the end what I'm doing with them. And sometimes it is going to be harder to work with somebody that you don't get along individually, but at the same time, if you know that your goal is there, it's easier to work together and say, hey, we're doing this goal, get done with the goal, and then put aside just doing more of a working relationship at that point. So.
Great. And Aubrey, working on the board sometimes means working with individuals that you may not personally get along with. What are some ways that you would handle this?
I'll say for me personally, it doesn't matter if I don't get along with this person, let's say, rather not work with them, as long as I'm doing my job, they're doing their job, and we can both come together at some points and, well, get the bigger picture moving along. It doesn't really matter how I feel directed towards a certain individual. We all have a role to play at the end of the day, and as long as whatever task is needs to be finished, then who really cares of who is dealing with who at the end of the day?
What is your understanding of your fiduciary responsibilities if elected to the board? The order for this one will be Kirst, Aubrey, Gita.
Fiduciary duties. It's in this case, it's going to be your financial duties with making sure that your funding is well spent. That, you know, or first of all, making sure we're doing the right fundraising, making sure that when we're going through, we're doing any times doing bids are correct on there. Also, at the same time, that we're spending wisely the fundings of the organization. Also making sure conflicts of interest are not being done. It's very important because it is, for nonprofits, it's illegal directly if you're doing anything, especially if you're going through with very little or no bids, with going out and getting individuals that you know are friends, getting, or your own individuals, getting, working with companies or organizations that you have vested interest, or your friends have vested interest to do that, for going into it. But yeah, sorry, just a little off today on that. But it's more on just ensuring that, you know, we are taking money for the organization and making sure it's well spent, making sure it's spent in a way that the community would approve of it. And just making sure that in the end, it is done in a legally responsible way, following the policies, both of the laws, our any other agreements that we have internally or externally. Go.
Aubrey, what is your understanding of your fiduciary responsibilities if elected to the board?
So for me, it would be to make sure that we're following the laws of the nonprofits, to making sure making sure that we're following the letter of the law when it comes to conflict of interest, to make sure we are able to keep up with our nonprofits. And at the end of the day, just keep it enjoyable all around.
Gita, what is your response? Sorry, I can't talk either. What is your understanding of your fiduciary responsibilities if elected to the board?
Being prudent and diligent with affairs, staying informed of people's concerns and ensuring that they're answered. Overseeing finances to, you know, make sure we're spending that money appropriately, whether it's grant money or the generous donations from the people that we aim to serve.
Thank you, Gita. What do you believe is the difference between the role of board and the role of staff or department leads? The order on this one, it will be Aubrey, Gita, then Kirsten.
So what I believe is the difference between the board and just a staff member is specifically the roles and what they're able to do. From what the board would be figuring out the financial of everything, to making sure we're following laws, to just all the legal stuff, to all the staff members. Let's say, for instance, the events team, where you're hosting all these events, planning, and doing all this. There's a fine line between the board and just a staff member, but each job has its own tasks to do that are still important to each department.
Gita, what do you believe is the difference between the role of a board and the role of a staff or department lead?
I believe the difference between the board roles and the staffing roles are in a similar way to a business. You have your store manager or your regional manager that keeps an eye on the bigger picture and is able to look at those distant resources and how to get the staff members access to those resources, whereas you've got the staff that can look at the nitty-gritty details and create a short form communication to the board for a bit of a coherent relationship.
Kirst, what do you believe is the difference between the role of board and the role of staff or department leads?
Yeah, so the big difference between the board and the staff and department is the board has all the legal responsibilities. They have the trademarks, the copyrights, the financial, they have all the duties from the law. The law has specific roles that they have to be doing. The law says there are specific things. They are responsible if something happens to some, the organization does something, they take the legal responsibility. They're the ones that are, in the end, going to be responsible for Minnesota First. The staff and department leads don't have that responsibilities or can be assigned some of that responsibilities, but they do not fully take that. When we run an event and everything else, they get some of the empowerment from the board to be able, as part of Minnesota First, to do something. But in the end, the board itself is the legal entity at this point. So the staff are more the doers, while the board has the legal entities.
What does success for Minnesota Firs look like to you at the end of your board term? How do you measure success? With this order, it will go Gita, Aubrey, Kirst. Gita, your time has started.
I would say that we have, or we've found, or strengthened relationships with other nonprofits, that we've been able to share resources, just having more of our goals met to have that safe and environment for our community members.
Thank you, Gita. We'll take a moment to just pause. White Fang, the session has started. We're going to have to work on a flying to figure out a time to record your session. For the fairness of all the candidates, I do ask that you leave the session so you don't have an unfair advantage of knowing the question pool. But we will work offline for rescheduling them. Cool. I guess let's call this. I want to keep things fair. Aubrey. Aubrey. What does success for Minnesota Firs look like to you at the end of your board term? How do you measure success?
So personally, what I want to see at the end of my board term would be making sure this board, this organization, everything in total can still be around for years to come, right after my time on the board ends. I'm hoping to strengthen our ties with other nonprofits and work together in other areas to expand and just hopefully to keep everything smooth sailing and have everything just keep on going.
Kirst, how does success for Minnesota Firs look like to you at the end of your board term? How do you measure success?
Well, it's going to sound the same as a lot of these, but it's going to be a strengthen community, strengthen the relationships with other nonprofits. Would love to see more board candidates as one of our metrics, more staff members, more events, but also less complaints or complaints being able to be handled by community members. If the community itself can self-govern and self-manage itself better, would be a metric I would like to see that would be there as something that I would love to be as something we can, as would be judged. I would love to see the organization itself to be more self-sufficient for lower end things. But I mean, having more events that are bigger events throughout the year would be a great thing to be also. So we're not just having furry migration as our big event and, you know, the holiday party, but having a couple, and the picnics as something, but I would like to see other style of events coming through too.
This is a question submitted by the community. Per the 2025 board retreat and posted in the Discord every 3 days, there is a projected budget deficit of $6,950 for the 2025-2026 financial year. How do you plan to balance the budget? For this order, it will be Aubrey, Kirst, Gita.
Honestly, I would just try and well, balance the budget by just bringing in new events, maybe more opportunities for people to get involved. Let's say have more, because usually, let's say the picnics, holiday parties, just some of the major events we put on. Some of our biggest stuff that we get money from is from badges, merch, and all that stuff. But if we are able to possibly do more, or even have more like another major event outside of it, like kind of like on the size of Midwinter Frolic, but something different but similar, maybe we are able to possibly recoup a bit more of the financial and be able to expand the events even further throughout the next coming years.
Kirst, I'm just going to repeat the back end of this. How do you plan to balance the budget?
Well, first of all, you go through the budget itself to look at why you're going through the deficit. You have to remember that the organization is also Midwinter Frolic for immigration and all these other things. We're not just one organization. We have to look at the whole organization and see if everything is in alignment at that point. If it's just one part of the organization that's out of budget and the other parts are not, it might be a false negative. But if it isn't, we go through and say we have to figure out how do we make our events more profitable? How do we do more merchandising? Do we do additional fundraising events? And I mean, do we do money drives on Discord? But do we do events that are specific drives and everything else? And do we haven't done. Also, we haven't done grants. We haven't go and written out our own grants to go and try to get theirs. And that is something that a lot of nonprofits, but we have to prove why we need those grants. And part of it is that we're supposed to be an educational nonprofit. So we have to prove that we're using those funds, that deficit for educational uses. And if we do go out for grants and stuff like that, we have to say, hey, we're doing these things. This is why we need the money. And if we're going out there for those things and we're saying that we need money, and if we don't show why we're needing money for those things, we can get ourselves also in additional troubles for that. So I would just make sure our books are in order, try to tighten down our things, look at our expenses, see if we're spending too much in other areas, then go through and try to get grants.
Gita, with the aforementioned question, how do you plan to balance the budget?
I would look at what we bought before by way of merchandise or other expenditures and ensure that those are the best they can and not just essentially cheap one-offs. Essentially going through and not really cutting any of the spending, but ensuring that we're not using it for
Gita, does that conclude your answer?
no, sorry, I was frozen for a second. basically going through and trying to fine tune certain things of where we've spent money and then seeing how we can do that even better.
What does belonging mean to you in the context of MNFurs, and how can the board help foster that? For this order, it will be Aubrey, Gita, Kirst. Oops. Your timer is starting.
So belonging to me can mean a bunch of different things, from having a community to feeling of belonging, community, togetherness, positivity. Could be a bunch of things under an umbrella, to say the least. And specifically with the board, I can personally help strengthen some areas that could be, some people may see as like some weak spots in our team specifically. That's it. That's much.
Gita, what does belonging mean to you in the context of MNFurs, and how can the board help foster it?
I would say belonging means having somewhere to go to meet up with people, to talk about common interests outside of online chats, to where you feel like you can actually connect with the people that you talk to. And a lot of our activities on the foster that already, between the romps, the picnics, and even some, yeah, 18 plus, or yeah, some of the gaming meetups. So just ensuring that the people that have run those, still want to, and taking their ideas into account to foster fresh ideas.
Kirst, what does belonging mean to you in the context of MNFurs, and how can the board help foster it?
Belonging is always going to be always in flux, I think. I think my opinion of belonging is a little bit different than it was 10 years ago. I think belonging is going to be different for each group of people. And for some people, it is going to be an online community. I think some people it's going to be a physical community, and I think some people it's going to be a hybrid. I think for MNFurs to be successful, it needs to be fostering for all those different types of communities, and we need to figure out ways to help out with those through volunteers, through staff, and everything else. And that has to be done through it's going to be different people, different ways of doing it. And that's going to be through volunteer staff and everything else, and using our own commitments. And some people are not going to be better suited at doing that, and the board's going to have to find specific people. We're going to have our own rules and regulations because of the laws of the United States, laws of Minnesota, and how we're doing as a nonprofit. But as an organization, we need to foster people to get them take those groups, and when they're ready to be, hey, this group likes to be in this area, they want to be communicating in this area, they need to be communicating in this area, we need to help them move around. We need to get them so when they feel like, I want to go from an online feeling good, I'm communicating online, I want to be in a physical meet space. There's a way for them to go to that meet space. And if I met people in meet space, but I want to see them in virtual because I can't get out for the next couple of months because of my job and stuff like that, I need to still be part of the community. There must be a way we need to be able to foster that. We need to foster that space.
Oh, what's happening?
Window Fox.
Window Fox.
5-minute break.
Yeah, are we cool? I mean, I don't think we need 15. Are you guys cool with just like 5 minutes?
I think 5 is fine. Everybody else 5? Or
Yeah,
do you
that's
want
fine.
longer?
You know, you cool with 5 minutes?
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. It is currently 2:41. We will reconvene here at 2:46.
That
Sorry,
clock-
by 2:46, I mean, we'll be back up here at 2:51.
Yeah, your clock's been off by 5 minutes.
All right, it is been 5 minutes. Gita, are you back?
Yes, indeed.
Cool. This may have been like a little bit earlier than halfway through, because I'm pretty sure there was 25 questions, but I guess we'll find out, so. Cool. We are resuming here. The next question here, everyone from the community. As people who can potentially hold multiple roles, how do you ensure that each of those roles are adequately fulfilled? How do you plan to manage your workload? For the order on this one, it will be Gita, Kirst, and then Aubrey.
Honestly, creating a stronger calendar and at the very least reaching out if I think I'm going to have a problem and not trying to think that, yeah, if I start to feel overwhelmed, like I can't rely on other people, not for help necessarily with the workload, but just the reassurance that I'm, on the right path. And also much better alarms for when things are due.
Kirst, as people who potentially hold multiple roles, how do you ensure that each of those roles are adequately fulfilled, and how do you plan to manage your workload?
For the first part, it's more on working with people, talking with them, keeping in contact. Keeping a personal contact with people is one of the best ways of doing it. If you stop contacting them and stop doing the personal contact, they may say that they're doing things, and I found that it's easier to check off and say you're doing things than to actually for things to get done. So keeping contact, keeping seeing how they're doing, just doing that. Don't try to micromanage, but at least being involved and stuff like that. For own personal things, everybody has their own ways. Mine is usually around some sort of calendar or some sort of note system that usually comes about, and using a priority system and everything else that comes away. If it gets overwhelming, then I do a more formal, more electronic system with that. But it's going to be, everybody has their own way of doing it, and usually you come up with your own system, and there are multiple ways, multiple tools out there to do it, and you have to use whatever way works the best for that person. And the thing, being a volunteer organization, you kind of have to allow people to do what is best for them.
Aubrey, as people can potentially hold multiple roles, how do you ensure that each of those roles are adequately fulfilled? How do you plan to manage your workload?
So for me personally, I know I already hold 2 roles inside the organization, one under FN's umbrella and then one under MNFurs umbrella. So as a person who is already having multiple roles, sometimes it's best to not always like micromanage people, to more of the extent you want to reach out, offer help whenever someone may need, just to make sure to see what they're doing, what they can possibly need help with, and just see what you can do to help advance them.
This one comes from the community as well. If elected to the board of directors, what actions do you feel that need to be taken in order to bring the organization to the next level? For this order, it will be Kirst, Aubrey, then Gita.
So, I mean, always what is the next level and everything else is always dependent on what your view of what the next level is. I think a lot of it is to how to make this organization be more supportive to people. It's not just creating great events, it's trying to give people support and trying to make it so we have a healthier environment for people living in our current world. I think a lot of today, we have a lot of problems with our own mental health and keeping up, being a good, positive world and everything else. I think that is going to be one of the big thing is to figure out how we can get ourselves to be able to get ours to not only view the world more positively, but keep the world viewing furry as a positive growth in the organization. So it's more of how do we outreach and keep getting outreach to show the community and show the Minnesota world that furry is a better thing, and also provide more resources for people when things are going wrong or things are going down in people's lives, and both financial, mental, and physical. Having this organization, having resources to be able to outreach people and be able to give support to people, because I think one of the things that we as a community, we should be supporting each other a little bit better. And it's going to be, I don't have specific things what we can do right now, but I think that's going to be something we need to look at, I think, for the whole community, because we're big enough now to start being able to do that.
Aubrey, if elected to the board of directors, what actions do you feel need to be taken in order to help bring the organization to the next level?
So personally, the first thing I feel like that needs to be happen is a reach out to all staff under the MNFurs banner. See how's everybody going, how's everybody feeling, what's the future looking like for them, just seeing where everybody's at. Because you can only have such a good organization as your weakest link. Oh, sorry, shouldn't say weakest link, but let's see. Just maybe get some feedback from people, see what can help advance the org, see what people want from the org, and just see where you can help out even in the smallest cases.
And Gita, if elected to the board of directors, what actions do you feel need to be taken in order to help bring the organization to the next level?
Optimizing our operations, ensuring, connecting with our community and obviously especially our staff to get their framework of what they think isn't working, and then putting our broader perspective on it, essentially empowering the team overall, because an individual doesn't succeed as well as a team does. So ensuring that we all feel empowered, whether it's working together or having the wherewithal to come to people with ideas, not thinking that their ideas are going to be seen as insufficient in some way.
And everyone from the community, what hobbies do you have besides being a furry? This one will be Gita, Aubrey, Kirst.
Unfortunately, one of them actually kind of ties into being furry. I've been getting into playing VR chat a little bit more. I am a huge fan of Beat Saber. Kills my shoulder, but it's worth it. And I try to just take care of my pets and spend as much time outdoors when I can without freezing my tail off. So lots of hiking.
Aubrey, what hobbies do you have besides being a furry?
So some tail into being furry, some don't. Some of the hobbies I love having is personally streaming, playing video games, playing some D&D with some friends, watching some sports, just taking long walks, and just honestly hanging out with people either IRL or online.
Chris, what hobbies do you have besides being a furry?
I always jokingly say everything is furry adjacent. So a video gamer of all different types of games. I'm also a movie buff, but I also love animation, and also big theme park enthusiast. Theme park and amusement parks. I really enjoy the going to theme parks, and especially theming of the theme parks, and overall for those. But I mean, all of those kind of usually have a little Venn diagram with furry around it. So kind of silly like that, just saying it's a little bit outside of it, but it's they're all interconnected somehow.
Another one from the community, and this one's a scenario. Scenario, an organization that is entirely unrelated to the Minnesota Furs, but fills the same market, announces a new furry convention in Duluth, Minnesota. How would you react? For the order for this one will be Aubrey, Gita first.
Honestly, some may see as like a challenge to some things, but honestly, I can actually use it as like a benefit for both cons of maybe working with them, having their con, let's say early February, March, and have like let's say, for instance, like for FM this year, we had a murder mystery theme, but possibly doing like things with them in the future of doing like they do a theme and then we continue it and having like a backbone, well, not necessarily backbone, but like similarity, and like if you've gone to this one, it can be extended over to the next one, just adding more to the convention experience.
Gita, paraphrase, another organization matches the same market for Minnesota Furs and announces a convention in Duluth. How do you react?
I would try to reach out to them and be like, hey, you need a hand? Or at least try to see what they're about, to whether or not they would want. Regardless of anyone's starter experience, we can all learn something from others. So I would just try to see what they got going on.
Chris, with the aforementioned question, how do you react?
So I'm going for the first minute and 30 seconds will be MNFurs side of things. The last 30 seconds will be me. The first thing, I would figure out the nonprofit status, because if they're the wrong nonprofit status or the commercial one, we could lose our nonprofit license and there would be no Minnesota Furs for helping these people out if we went out and directly out them. They might be, if they're the wrong nonprofit or commercial one, there might be a way to work with them, but we would have to negotiate a contract and we would have to go through there. This is the way it is. This is legal. This is not fun. Sorry for saying that out loud, but there are things we have to consider if we want to be a nonprofit here. We have to be legal. But if they're a 501c3 nonprofit, they're the right type, everything works connected, I would love them to work with them and everything else. There should be no competition between groups, and there should be no competition with that. We should be able to do resource things. Even if there is some things, we can set up a contract. We can do things like, oh, you pay us some money. We can do some resources and stuff like that. But it all depends on their status. From a person point of view, great. I love that there's another organization. I would probably go out and see, at least go to it for the first time, even if they're not a 501c3 nonprofit. If they're not compatible with Minnesota Furs, I would still go to it. If it was commercial, I would probably not go to it. If they're a 501c7 or C3, I would volunteer outside of Minnesota Furs probably myself. I would never, there's no such thing as volunteering for a for-profit organization.
All right. I was busy checking the audio. I did all 3 candidates, right? Okay.
Yeah. Sorry for spiking.
No, it's fine. What inspired you to run for a position on the Minnesota MNFurs Board of Directors? This one will be Gita, Kirst, Aubrey. Gita, your time has started.
I'm not going to say I didn't feel like I was making enough impact or the right impact with my staffing role for furry migration. I just wanted to kind of expand horizons and understand more of the details, not necessarily of running a con, but just how the community for MNFurs grew to what it was, and how I can try to help make that better, or just be supportive of what's already working.
Kirst, what inspired you to run for a position on the MNFurs Board of Directors?
One of the reasons why I ran for it is that I personally feel like I can help out the organization at being on the board. It also is a personal thing. I feel like that it makes me feel involved. It provides a fulfillment in there of helping out people. I am an enabler. I'd like to help people out. And for me, this is kind of one of the things I like to do. I mean, I like to help people. And being on the board feels like something I can do. And my hope is being on the board eventually will be, if I am on the board at this point, I can start moving away more things. I do plan on that anyways, but this is kind of being more advisory, try to get more towards advisory on a couple other things and try to help on giving people more knowledge and try to give that more ancestry knowledge of the organization. And my hope is to give insights in other things. But honestly, what inspires me is I like helping people. I just like doing things like this. And besides, I mean, I don't have anything else to do on Sunday nights.
Aubrey, what inspired you to run for a position on the MNFurs Board of Directors?
So personally, I've been not necessarily, let's say, on a board level stuff, but I've been through certain other groups growing up, from student council to leader of groups throughout different areas of different states. And I feel like, for me personally, with all my experience in the past, it can definitely help out and grow and shape what MNFurs is today.
What scares you the most about being on the board? For this one, it's Gita, Kirst, Aubrey.
I would honestly say the imposter syndrome of feeling like I'm not good enough or am going to end up tripping on my face.
Kirst?
Partly the imposter syndrome too, but the other thing is not fulfilling the needs of all the parts of the community, not being there for everybody. I want to be as much there and keeping the organization going as much as possible. I don't want to harm the organization by being there. I want to be the best. If I'm there on the board, I want to be one of the best choices to be on the board, not to be there just to be filling up a spot.
Aubrey?
So what scares me the most is just getting so far up and then just failing and not being able to, well, continue on my promises that I've already made, and just also I guess also a bit of imposter syndrome that what I can do may just not seem as effective as what I'm thinking it can be.
Sorry, I had to re-roll for the next order. What's a Minnesota Furs event, tradition, or moment that really make you feel like this is my community? For this one, it'll be Kirst, Aubrey, Gita.
You just wanted to do this first, so I haven't like go, and everything else like that. This is a hard one. Too many things in my back of my head. But I mean, to be brutally honest, it's probably there's so many little things and everything else for me. There's so many little events, traditions, or moments and everything else, but I think it's the picnics. I mean, I gotta say, it's having the picnics around here. It's always feeling like that, it's the start of summer, doing the spring picnic. But I mean, really, it's just the whole community, every moment, every event and everything else just feels like part of it. Whenever I go to it, it feels like there is community, even if it's new faces and seeing stuff there. It always feels like there is part of it, even if it's a new people there. I feel like part of the community there.
Aubrey, what's a Minnesota Furs event, tradition, or moment that really made you feel like this is my community?
I probably have to go to my first romp after moving here back in November. When I didn't know anybody around here, I just found out MNFurs for the first time, ironically, I believe through Facebook. And going to a romp and just being able to hang out with a bunch of people. Some people even noticed like if it was the new person around, and just was able to just chat with me and help me out and seeing more about the community, just got me more and more involved throughout the days.
And Gita, what's a Minnesota Furs event, tradition, or moment that really made you feel like this is my community?
Furry migration definitely set the stage, but I would say that first fall picnic I went to, and just being able to see not even some of the same people, and essentially seeing more of what there is for people to have that, not really even ability to hang out, just connect with, the furries around them.
And that was it. I was wrong about the 25 questions. It was more like 20. But that concludes the Q&A session. We want to hear a round of applause for our candidates. Running for the board is definitely a thankless job, and it's unpaid, as everyone knows, and it's a lot of work, but very rewarding in the end. So definitely thank all of our candidates for making that step forward to give back to the community. And just as a reminder, you don't have to be a board member to make a difference. Staff members also make a difference as well. With the number of seats we have available on the board, not everyone's going to make it. Just remember that if anyone does not make it to the board, that is not a reflection of yourself. That you can still give to the community as well. So it's not a popularity contest. If you don't make the cut, that's fine. And there's always either next year or you can give the same impact as a staff member.
I'll say if I may piggyback on that, arguably, I think one can make more difference in the organization as a staff member, so pardon the programmer parlance, being closer to the metal.
Yeah.
You can do more as a staff member than as a board member in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure. Especially the fact that sometimes as a board member, you can get tied up with a lot of the administrative stuff and not really some of the stuff that maybe you would be more passionate about. For me, for example, I've been able to do a lot less video, which is a bummer, but still it's a honor to be a part of the board. But anyway, thanks everyone for attending. This session will be online on YouTube after we conclude all the offline candidates at this point, which is White Fang and Talent. So everyone have a great night. For those that are here, drive safe, and we will see you next event.